Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Balls and Bros. I'm David. This is Jacob. We're your host. It's draft week. The draft is coming up on Thursday, which will possibly be tomorrow when this video comes out. We're going to talk about what we think is going to happen in the draft, basically, as well as maybe what should or shouldn't be going on. The first thing we're going to talk about is obviously very recent news is the trades that have gone on for the first and second round pick. The Los Angeles Rams, still weird to say, traded for the Tennessee Titans' first pick in the draft. Now that's a pretty big move, and so obviously they're going to get something big. They traded away the pick at 15, as well as pick at 43, 45, 76, and then next year's first and third round picks. And that's going to be for Tennessee's first round pick this year. They're 113th and 177th. So it's really heavily, on the scale, Tennessee really got a lot for that. Now, as far as LA making the right choice here, making a good move and giving all that up for the first round pick, will really depend on who they decide to go with. Now, you and I believe that it's not that hard of a pick because we know that they're pretty much going to go with quarterback. Who do you think they're going to get with the first pick in the NFL draft?
The Rams will get Jared Goff. 99% sure about that. I really like this trade actually for both teams. The Rams gave up a lot to move to the number one slot, but they're going to get their franchise quarterback, Jared Goff, an excellent passer, and Tennessee got what they wanted. They never truly wanted the first pick. They were always shopping the first pick, so they got what they want, and then they're going to move down to 15. They're still going to be able to get somebody with value there, and now they have 3 second-round picks, which is huge with this year's depth in the draft class, so that actually helps out. I really like that trade for both teams.
And it's really a big weight off of their shoulders because they don't have such a big, enormous pressure to have the first pick in the NFL draft. It's got to be difficult to make a choice like that, unless of course you're possibly the Rams, who, if you're trading for the number one pick, they probably know what they're going for already. So, do you have any idea who the Titans might go for now? Before we had him taking Tunsil, now he might not be he'll very likely not be on the board.
Well, their strategy basically stays the same. Get the best offensive tackle available because that's what they need. I mean, they really need all positions. They could use the help, but if they want to still have a productive pick in the first round, then they should definitely get Jack Conklin from Michigan State. He's a pretty good tackle, and that's good value there. Or get Taylor Decker from Ohio State. Those are the two players that will likely be there at 15.
And another trade was also made this week. Even more recently, the Eagles traded up with the Browns for their second round pick. Now, again, pretty much the same thing. It's a big move. Probably know what they're going to get. They gave away their 8 pick, their, 77 and 100 pick, as well as their first round pick next year and their second round pick in 2018, in 2 years from now. And it's really about, it really weighs about the same as what LA gave up for their pick. LA gave up a lot, but Cleveland gave up, a very early pick that they might have been able to do with. And Philly, of course, got the second pick in this draft, and as well as next year, the fourth pick in the draft. So, with the Eagles, just today, we found out that Sam Bradford doesn't want to play for the Eagles anymore. I had an idea that they wouldn't go for a quarterback this year because they had Sam Bradford. Heard about that. That was out the window. Jacob, you've been on this one all along. Who do you think they're going to take?
Well, it's no question that they moved up to take a quarterback, and that's what's causing Sam Bradford to want to leave. They want Carson Wentz from North Dakota State. He's the guy that, I mean, he's the guy that they gave up their future for, basically. I mean, moving up that high. I really dislike what Philly did because they could have got a better quarterback, Paxton Lynch. They could have got him later in the first round with their original pick, but instead they move up to get a guy that they're not really sure of. I mean, he played at North Dakota State, like I said, and that's not a great football school. They're not playing teams like Alabama and the top ranked teams. So he's really a question mark at this point. At least with Jared Goff, you know what he's going to give you, and that's why it was smart for LA to move up that high. But with Wentz, I'm not sure that was the right thing to do.
I can also agree with you. I don't agree in the way that I don't agree with Philadelphia giving so much for Carson Wentz. Well, if they're going to take a quarterback, I understand them taking Carson Wentz. I personally believe that they shouldn't even be going after a quarterback. They have Sam Bradford, who is the better of the last quarterbacks that they've had. They've had pretty mediocre quarterbacks over the past couple of years, and for them to have Sam Bradford, finally, a guy that they know can do well in the NFL, and they're giving him all this trouble by moving up, and apparently it's very clear that they're going to take a quarterback. I think it's pretty silly because, again, they have Sam Bradford. They don't really need a quarterback. They've done without one for a long time.
But where has that got them? That's the question.
And you're right.
And with the injuries to Sam Bradford, they needed a quarterback.
You're right.
I don't know if they needed it that high with that high of a pick, but it was definitely an issue that they had to address.
I just don't agree with them trading away, or not trading away. I don't agree with them trading for a pick for a quarterback that they don't know how they're going to do in the NFL, referring to Carson Wentz, because they're pretty much going to take Carson Wentz. When you have Sam Bradford, all you're doing is pressuring Sam Bradford to want to leave, because it looks like he wants to leave. I don't agree with his decision. I very thoroughly disagree with his decision. Maybe get mad after they draft the quarterback, but it seems a little immature on his part to be asking to be off the team just because they traded for the second round pick. But again, I feel like Philadelphia should not have put that much pressure onto Sam Bradford in making him think that, well, that he's about to get replaced, especially by a rookie. So, we think in the first two rounds, it's fairly set in stone that they're going to take quarterbacks. They've kind of made it clear, both teams, that they're going to get a quarterback. So, in regards to that, we're going to be talking about the quarterbacks in the draft this year. There are a few. There are some very talented ones as well. It's a little bit of a deeper bunch. We're going to be talking about 5 of them today. Jacob, why don't you start?
So my first overall quarterback is Jared Goff. And what Jared Goff does that separates him from everyone else is his footwork. He has great footwork, which is something that's kind of unvalued in today's NFL. But now you're starting to see more players like RG3 and Colin Kaepernick who are getting help from trained people who help you with your footwork. So, and Jared Goff already has that, so that's a big advantage that he has. He's good with screens and short passes. He reads the field very well, and he has big play potential. So if you package that all together, he is the best overall quarterback.
And there's something that personally I like about a pocket passer like Jared Goff. He brings that sort of classic quarterback look, then he'll bring it to the NFL, and he's going just to succeed. Hopefully wherever he goes, we think in Los Angeles, close to home for him, and that'll be especially good for him if that does work out.
Uh,
Next, we'll talk about Lynch. He's next on your list, correct?
Yes.
What do you think about him? Why is he second on your list?
Paxton Lynch is second on my list because of his huge arm. He can, if you're in trouble for a third and long, he's the guy that you want throwing the ball. He does have a high arched release, and that can actually bring his stock down a little bit, just depending on the situation. But Aaron Rodgers has a high arch release too, so I wouldn't get too worried about that. Lynch also has a decent play action, something that all of the colleges run. They all run play action,
That's
but
right.
Lynch probably does it the best. And something that stands out to me is when I was watching his tape, he wasn't afraid to get hit, and he didn't get flustered at all in the pocket. So that's really why Lynch is second on my list.
Because he stays cool under that pressure, even
Yeah.
when somebody's breathing down his neck.
And he's had big games. He's already proven himself as a good quarterback. So I think that will translate good in the NFL. Him and Goff were actually very close in ranking them. It was almost a tie, but Goff was just slightly ahead of him.
Moving on to Carson Wentz out of North Dakota State. He's a bit more, I don't want to say athletic, but he moves around more. He's not so much of the pocket passer that the other two are, but he's more of what the NFL's being accustomed to seeing now. What do you think about him, and why is he, third on your list?
Well, Wentz is third on my list. You touched on it. He's more of the typical today's quarterback. He's a lot like Cam Newton, I guess, just the way that he plays. He's not on Cam Newton's level, but with the running, and I mean he has a good vision. The only thing about him is one, he's injured his shoulder pretty badly, and for some teams that could be a question mark. It may not be anything at all, but that's something to keep an eye on as he progresses in the NFL. And another thing about him is he needs to improve his accuracy. That's why I had him as third, because yeah, he can make a lot of big plays, but so could Johnny Manziel coming out of college.
That's right.
And we all know now he doesn't have any success in the NFL.
Or in life.
Still though, Carson Wentz is third on my list. He has B potential. That's what I gave him. I all gave them a letter grade, and he has B potential for me, which is higher than everybody else. So he's done enough to be on my list, but he has a lot of room to grow.
So we're going to talk about Connor Cook next. He's another pocket passer for the most part. He's good throwing the ball down the field. He can get it down there. But reasons he's further back on the list here, he forces passes a bit more often than you'd like, as well as when he starts getting pressured in the pocket, he will start to lose it a little bit, get flustered on that.
Well, we saw in the Alabama game where they had the dominant defensive line and they kept coming after him, and he was nowhere to be found at all during the game. And he does have probably the best long bomb out of everybody in this draft class. Connor Cook is actually really unvalued in this year's class. You don't hear a lot of people talking about Connor Cook.
You're right.
Wentz, Goff, and Lynch, and even you hear Hackenberg over him. But Cook, to me, I mean, he had all the success he could besides winning an actual championship. But he did fairly decent in college, and he's done enough to where if I was a team who needs a quarterback, I would want to take him with my pick. The only thing is, like you said, he gets flustered in the pocket, but that's something that with the right coach, you could easily develop that. You could develop
as well as possibly the right offensive line.
Yeah.
To help protect him. And then to the last quarterback we're talking about, and again, this is Jacob's list of top 5. Moving down to Prescott, right out of Mississippi. He's another athlete. You compared him to Russell Wilson. So,
yeah, Dak Prescott to me is an unvalued quarterback as well. Not a lot of people know about him, but he has big playmaker ability. He's a lot like Russell Wilson. That's why I like him. He's very sharp with his passes, and when he's in trouble, he doesn't get flustered like Cook, but um, with Prescott, the only reason he's 5 for me and not higher on the list is because of his long bomb ability and his decision making. It's not as good as the other quarterbacks, but he's shown me enough through his playmaking ability that I would want to take a chance on him just simply for that.
So now we're going to get into some more Jacob talk. We're going to be talking about his most exciting players he believes that are going to come out of this draft. Take it away.
So I'm really excited to see, my favorite player coming out of college, Noah Spence, the defensive end hybrid player from Northern Kentucky. What he does is he sets the edges really well, which is what every team wants their defensive ends to do now, and he does it very effectively.
Especially with the new age of quarterback.
He has a huge motor, which is also kind of rare today. You see players taking plays off, not going 100 every time out on the field, and he does that. He has a vicious swim move as well. He's very crafty coming off the edge, and he's always a threat to strip the ball. So what Noah Spence can do is he can electrify your defense, and he helps out everybody on the field. He helps out the linebackers, he helps out the secondary. He even helps out the tackles and the other ends because he can take away pressure from everybody else on the field. And I'm just excited to see what he can do because not a lot of people are high on this guy, but I am. He's my number 1 ranked defensive player. But, currently, he's number 2, but Jalen Smith, since he won't be playing this year, Spence will be number 1 for that. Spence also always never stops his feet. He's always moving. Even when he doesn't have a chance at the play, he's still fighting to try to make some sort of play. And his motor, that's really what separates him from the rest of the group. Another player I really like is the outside linebacker from Notre Dame, Jalen Smith. He's very explosive. He's very fast. He's the best linebacker in coverage. A lot of people say Miles Jack is that, but that's total BS. Smith's takeoff is something like I've never seen before. He's very, very, very quick, and he always finds the right angles. When I'm not a big Notre Dame fan, so I didn't see a lot of Notre Dame's games. But when I turned on the tape and I saw what he could do as a playmaker, I knew that any team could use Jalen Smith on their team. He as well has an A potential for me. The only thing is, he's not going to play this season. He tore his ACL gruesomely, and a lot of people said that he might be able to come back midway through the season or towards the end of the season, but that's not true. He's going to miss all of the season. But his production level is so great. He could be such a game changer that if you're a team, you have to get him in either the first or second round. If I was a GM, I would get him early in the second round just to get him, but I'm very excited to see him whenever he does play. The third player is Brennan Hargraves, the cornerback from Florida. He is a highly intellectual player. He makes all the right reads. He's an absolute ball hawk. He's a good tackler, which is something that all NFL teams need now with the bigger receivers. And even though he's small, he plays big. He plays physical, and he's really good. Like, he's a really, really good man-to-man coverage cornerback, and he can help out whatever team he goes to. So I'm really excited to see him play.
Moving on now. Regarding exciting players, Jacob's particularly excited about one player. He's got a lot to say about Ezekiel Elliott, the supposed number one ranked running back for almost everybody in this year's draft. Jacob, why are you so excited to see Ezekiel Elliott this year?
Well, I'm so excited to see Elliott just because I know that he's going to be a bust.
Dramatic music.
A lot of people like Elliott because he is considered a big game changer. They think that he can transform a team. Um, they think that he's the missing piece to a championship for a lot of teams that have the duo of a great quarterback and great receiver. They think that he's the missing link that will get him to a Super Bowl, which has been the case for many teams in the past.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not completely against Elliott. He's a great runner through the holes. He has good vision. He gets vertical very well. He always can create moves to gain extra yards. And his pass blocking, his pass protection is questionable, but a lot of people will argue with me with that too. But the reason I don't like Elliott as much as everyone else is just simply because I didn't see enough on tape. He didn't wow me like at it really any point. I mean, yeah, he had great runs throughout the season that that do wow me, but there was never a time where I looked at Elliott and I saw an absolute game changer in him. Last year, I saw Todd Gurley, and I told you, I said, this guy, he's legit. I don't care about the ACL injury. He's going to get it done. And then there was Melvin Gordon. A lot of people liked him, and they said that he's the best running back, and you take him over Gurley because of the ACL tear. But Gordon was a bust, and Todd Gurley was dominant.
Just times that we wish we could go back and start this a little sooner.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of what I see with Elliott and Henry. I think Henry's a way better running back. I mean, have you seen Henry? Henry is a monster. He's huge.
He's a big guy.
People think that he's going to be like Trent Richardson. Trent Richardson is tiny compared to Henry. How can you have a monster like that in the backfield, and how does he do bad? That's the question. How does he not succeed? You have to have a horrible O-line for him not to succeed. So, for me, I mean, Henry, he's still a physical runner. He can still burst down the field. He can still gain extra yards through power. I mean, what more do you want from a running back? That's why, to me, Henry's better. And Elliott's just overhyped.
There you have it. There are his views on Ezekiel Elliott. We'll expect the mob tomorrow morning. So moving on to, you think Ezekiel Elliott might not be the player that everybody else thinks he is.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any other players on that list? Because every year we always have those. We talked about it in the other draft episode that we did, where there are just going to be players that don't do well enough and don't live up to expectations. Which players do you think will be taken just too early in the draft for what they are worth?
Well, we touched on the first one earlier. Carson Wentz, in my opinion, he's not even a first-round pick. So, to be going with the second overall pick, I mean, he really is going too high. Another player is Josh Doxson. For some people, he's their number 2, number 3. Well, with the receivers class this year, they're really all mixed.
Mm-hmm.
Besides, I mean, it's Laquan Treadwell 1 and 2, 3, 4, and 5. Those are all a mix. But almost every mock draft that I've seen and the ones that I've done previously, he's gone in the first round, but he hasn't shown me enough on tape for me to give him a first round score. So, but I already know that a team will take him, so he'll be taken too high. And then DeForest Buckner is a player that we talked about in one of our first videos. I still haven't seen enough from him, and I think he will be taken too high. He's not going to be a bust, but he's not first round worthy. He'll just provide you solid rotational value and depth, but Buckner's not a starter. He's not a first round grade.
And on the other side, we have players that might be taken a bit later than what they're valued at, or rather maybe they're valued less than what they actually are. So are there any players you think that are going to be taken later than they should be?
Yeah, Darren Lee, the outside linebacker from Ohio State. I've always had him mid-range in the first round or in the 20s, um, because he's a great linebacker. Besides Jack and Smith, he's right there, 3, 4. But in my most recent mock draft that I've done, he actually fell out of the first round. And if I have him falling out of the first round, then I already know that somebody else, other teams, they're thinking this guy might not be the first round pick overall, or for that team. So I could really see him not too far into the second round because he's a great player, but he'll fall more than he was expected to. Michael Thomas, the receiver from Ohio State, I think he'll fall in the draft as well because there are a lot of teams that need a receiver in the first round, but the way that I have it structured is that he'll actually end up falling early second round, early second round to mid second round. So just like Lee, he's not going to fall tremendously, but he's falling from where he was normally expected to go. And last, Derrick Henry. Now this one is, kind of questionable because he's my favorite running back in this year's draft class, and I think a lot of teams could use him. But it just shows you how unappreciated the running back party is. They get paid the least out of all the positions on offense, but yet every team needs one. Derrick Henry, I have him going mid-second round, late second round, which is a bold statement as well because of the lack of good running backs in this league, and I think he can provide that. He's going to be your Eddie Lacy type.
So you think they're going to let Derrick Henry fall that far into the draft?
Yeah, and it's going to take a smart organization to take him. I mean, even if you have a running back, would it really hurt to take him in the second round? I mean, that would be a huge pick for your team. Literally, huge pick for your team. But it makes sense for almost every team. Every team could use Derrick Henry. Even if you have a running back, every team could use Derrick Henry.
All right, and you think that he might be that star on the team that can possibly transform a franchise.
Yeah, and I have him going to the Colts in the second round. So Andrew Luck, T.Y. Hilton, Derrick Henry, like I was saying earlier with what they want Ezekiel Elliott to do, it might actually turn out to be Henry that does that for you, because they've always had the quarterback and the receiver, but they've never had the running back. So if you add Henry, who, like I said, is your Eddie Lacy type, I mean, you put him plug and chug, and he'll take you far.
All right, well, that about does it for this episode of Balls and Bros. Jacob will have another episode of just him, hopefully coming out today, of his full NFL mock draft for the first round. So stay tuned for that. I'm David. This is Jacob. Thank you for watching another episode of Balls and Bros.